The president ultimately, because this is the head of state, whatever is being done to Dr. Nyakang'Os is being done in the name of the state. So if you're telling me that the state can go rogue and is heading it, then he is also equally rogue. And the controller of budget, in doing her job, she's pointing out some issues which some of us have been talking about as the true cause of the spectacular failures of Kenya Kwanza's economic agenda. So she's doing her job. In the case of Dr. Nyakang'Os, that established long-running practice of criminal trials was thrown to the dustbin.
Okay.
She was merely grabbed from Nairobi, Karen. The next thing, she's in Mombasa. And I ask you, why Mombasa? Why not Nairobi? An accused person should be charged to proximity where she lives.
Well, a very good day to you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Candid Talk. My name is Evans Okinyi. Such a pleasure to always have you on board. Well, as I promised, I told you very well that we'll be having these conversations with Wakili Willis Otieno once again. Of course, he said that he'll be here on an hebdomadal basis. And once again, we're here with him. Wakili, how are you?
I'm very fine. Thank you for hosting.
We are here yet again on this interesting episode of the Candid Talk. Definitely want to inform the country and perhaps look at certain things that are actually taking place within this country. Now, let us begin from here. Some action that has actually struck the minds of quite a number of Kenyans is the kind of problem, rather, who's that are bedeviling the controller of budget, Dr. Margaret Nyakang'Os. I want us to begin this conversation from there. Look at the events that are actually took place this week with regards to her arrest therein and her arraignment in court in Mombasa. I mean, for a constitutional office holder, is that the right way that we should actually handle them?
In fact, the first point that we should start with is the manner of arresting anyone and charging them. Because it presupposes that there have been investigations which have been done. And you've taken the statement of the person. Once you take the statement, you weigh that statement of the person, the suspect, vis-a-vis the other evidence you've collected. Then you make a decision that there seems to be a prima facie case that will warrant the arraignment of the suspect to answer to the charges. At that point, you do what in law we call a caution and charge statement, in which now you take another statement of the suspect and tell him that we are now going to charge you for the offense, so we want to take your statement on that. In the case of Dr. Nyakang'Os, from what she has explained, she went to write a statement in Nairobi. The next thing, she is in Mombasa. No caution and charge statement was taken from her. So at what point was the decision to charge made? Right? And if you look even at the nature of the allegations against her, they relate to a purported SACCO transaction that occurred in 2016. Now, she was vetted by Parliament, and these things were never raised. In any event, if the SACCO has officials who are involved in the day-to-day running of the SACCO, they should answer to it. You don't go to a contributor to the SACCO and try to turn it. Obviously, in my view, this is a case of political witch hunt. And it relates to what Dr. Nyakang'Os has been talking about over time. The first time Dr. Nyakang'Os came out to speak to the public, she mentioned about line items in the budget which don't make sense, and that we have actually been fulizaing. We are taking a fuliza to go and drink. And that is what us as Sabina party we've been saying, that the government of Kenya goes on a borrowing spree without following the law, and that money is spent on fuliza projects. Nothing that you can say was meaningful to the people of Kenya. That borrowing was not approved by Parliament. It's not according to our law. And that has led to a ballooning debt book to an extent that we don't even know. If you asked her, even she was saying it, how much money we've since paid as our public debt, and how much do we even owe. That was a very key statement that the controller of budget did make. The second thing she raised, again, still on the budget books, that the amounts of money which have been indicated as her salary and that of other constitutional office holders is grossly exaggerated, almost 3 times what is their constitutional entitlement, what they actually earn. But in the budget books, in the appropriations, in the expenditure estimates, it's indicated she's earned 3 times what was earning. Obviously, this lady was on a roll to speak truth to power and to uphold the provisions of our constitution on good governance, transparency and accountability. And that must have been unsettling certain quarters within the Kenya Kwanza administration. Hence, you are seeing this very weak attempt to intimidate and to silence her. Obviously, I do believe that the intention was to charge her, and the next point would be to put pressure on her to step aside, pending the determination of the criminal case. But at least up to this point, good sense has prevailed, and the High Court of Kenya yesterday did issue a conservatory order to stop her arraignment and the charges which have been preferred against her, pending the hearing and determination of a constitutional petition which has been filed by one lawyer. Yes.
So we hear definitely a number of people have alluded to political witch hunt there, but where do you draw the line between politics and national governance here? Because I believe the control of budget in that kind of office is actually independent and it doesn't have any sort of political affiliation. How do you people bring in politics into this?
It's not about us bringing in, because bringing in politics into this. It's very simple. The holders of executive office at the top level are politicians.
Okay.
Right? And they have failed in the attempt to govern this country. They have economically failed, and they have failed spectacularly. Right? And the control of budget, in doing her job, she's pointing out some issues which some of us have been talking about as the true cause of the spectacular failures of Kenya Kwanza's economic agenda. So she's doing her job. Now, what is Kenya Kwanza's response to an independent constitutional office holder doing her job as required by law and pointing out serious glaring anomalies in the administration, in how they're running our budget books? Their response, because obviously they're seeing that she's affirming what those of us who studied the budget books and studied their tool of trade are saying. She's affirming it. So their response is, okay, maybe we don't want an independent office holder to speak.
Okay.
So you silence her. You muzzle her voice so that she does not affirm that which we all know is happening in Kenya Kwanza.
Okay.
Hence, we say these are political witch hunt. Because if it was a genuine case of prosecution, I started by telling you the legal process, the criminal trial process, how it starts. What could have stopped them from going through that legal process? Because if you took a statement and you weigh it against the evidence, then you should be able to demonstrate a nexus between her and the SACCO, its management, and its operations. That is not done. And I also did say that in criminal trial process, there's what we call a charge and caution statement. This is a second statement taken when you'd given your first statement, you're going to the second statement. Now, I have said, I've looked at the evidence, I've considered what you said. Now, I have formed an opinion that there's a basis to charge you. Then you take now what we call the charge and caution statement, where now you read to her the proposed offenses you want to charge her with, and you ask the person's response on all of this. And this statement is what we call the charge and caution statement. In the case of Dr. Nyakang'Os, that established long-running practice of criminal trials was thrown to the dustbin.
Okay.
She was merely grabbed from Nairobi, Karen. The next thing, she's in Mombasa. And I ask you, why Mombasa? Why not Nairobi? An accused person should be charged to proximity where she lives or where she committed the offense alleged. Why drive her for 12 hours to Mombasa? I mean, any person who goes through our criminal trial process, there's what we call a presumption of innocence. So you are seeing the system administratively, in the way in which it is responding, at first instance, trying to disenfranchise the suspect. You are being treated as if you are guilty. Because anybody charged in our criminal trial court is innocent until proved guilty. So why do you drag somebody overnight to arena in a court in Mombasa? From Karen, we have the Ngong Magistrates Courts. We have Kibera Law Courts. We have Milimani Chief Magistrates Court. We have Makadara Chief Magistrates Court. We have Kahawa Chief Magistrates. Just that within the vicinity of Nairobi. Mombasa is more than 400 kilometers away from Nairobi. Why drag her overnight to charge her?
So these actually...
And then, as I'm saying, the way it is laid out, she's alleged to have committed these offenses with 11 other people, 10 other people. Where are these other 10 people? Why are they not being arraigned?
Definitely, those questions have been asked as well.
That's the what I'm saying. When we say it is a political witch hunt, the criminal trial process, in my view, is not meant to further the objectives of the law, but to put pressure to bear on the poor lady. Because if it was genuine, at the point when you are arraigning the suspects, you'll have brought all of them. You'll have taken them through what we know as the criminal trial process. You'll have charged them in any court in Nairobi, even Machakos, even Kiambu.
So in short, you're saying that the due process, even of arrest, was not followed?
Was not followed.
But, and just the common man is actually asking, why would then, okay, what position does the magistrate to whom the lady was actually presented find themselves here, owing to the fact that already the arrest process is flawed and the person is presented to you and you go ahead and listen to the case? Does it mean that we've got some sort of a problem within our judicial system, such that the judges are actually left with no option at all?
Not really. You see, for a magistrate, our system of trial is what we call the adversarial system. The court remains as an impartial arbiter.
Okay.
It is the parties down here, the state in that particular case, and the accused persons who are litigating the matter. The court is independent.
So it doesn't matter
the court
how
cannot
the person
how you arrive there. But now those are some of the questions which then you can question the process. And that is part of the issues which are being raised in the constitutional petition. All these things I'm telling you are the things being raised in the constitutional petition to question her arraignment in Mombasa. And the trial process, I mean the criminal trial process, which had been initiated by the state against her. Now those are now being questioned in the High Court here in Nairobi. Yes, so the court will have an opportunity to say, did they follow the law before a decision was made to arraign her? And was there even a legal basis for her to be charged? That can be questioned in a different court, not the court where you're arraigned. When you appear in a court, all the court will do at that particular point is to register the charge, then you take a plea. And then the trial process can start. But if you feel that there has been serious violations of the law and that they've not followed the established criminal procedure, then you can raise a constitutional petition questioning the veracity and the validity of those charges which have been brought against you in a constitutional petition. And in the case of Dr. Nyakang'Os, that is what has been now raised in the High Court, and the High Court at a prima facie level has issued a conservatory order to stop the continuation of those criminal proceedings pending the hearing termination of the petition.
Okay.
Yes.
But for the magistrate, whether this process was flawed or not, it doesn't matter. They have to listen.
I mean, they have to listen. That's the question of the process is not before the magistrate. What is before the magistrate is the charge sheet, and the accused person answers to the charge sheet.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, a number of leaders across the political divide have weighed into this conversation. Of course, the former Prime Minister questioned this as much. Certain quarters of leaders from the Gusii region have also weighed into this conversation, and they're saying that the lady here, the control of budget is being targeted, just as you said it here. But then I saw some sort of mixed reaction from that end. A number of them were saying that why is it that there's a section of leaders within the Kenya Kwanza government who are actually waiting for the president to leave, and then they actually decide to do whatever it is that they're doing right now. I mean, and then some of them are saying that the president is aware and is fully right in it. I wonder what kind of responsibility does the president actually have in such kind of circumstances? If at all it's a political witch hunt or whatever it is that is taking place, should the blame be on the president or some other quarters that these people are actually saying that are waiting for the president to leave the country?
What you must answer is this. This is a holder of an independent constitutional office. And is protected even in terms of security of tenure.
Okay.
Cannot even be fired unless through a very elaborate legal process. That's why they give a security of tenure.
Okay.
Now, whichever way it goes, assuming the president was not aware that the controller of budget was being charged in Mombasa, being arrested in Nairobi and being taken to Mombasa, then it speaks to incompetence. Because you'll expect the system to have briefed him. There's a serious, I mean, these are holder of an independent constitutional office. You'll expect at the very basic level, because it's the instruments of the state that are used to register these charges. It's the police that investigates. It's the DPP that prefers the charges, right? You will expect a briefing somewhere within the system that we have found the controller of budget omitting the following. So there should have been a security briefing somewhere in which you should be aware. So if he was not aware, then there's a serious breach, serious problem in the administration. The other component, if he was aware, right, then you also ask yourself that in the totality of from the AG to the DPP to the DCI, the totality of the state apparatus that will provide legal advice, will the president, having been aware, allow the state apparatus to do the kind of arrangement they are doing for Dr. Nyakang'Os?
The office of the Director of Public Prosecutions is an independent office. How does the president come in?
No, I've told you, there's what we call briefing. You are independent does not mean that you are in isolation, right? You work within the state structure.
Okay.
Yeah, so that even in terms of organization of government, the DPP falls within the law and justice sector. And the AG, we have the NCAJ. We are still one government.
Okay.
But independence does not mean that you don't give not information, that we are now isolated from the rest of the state. No. Independence simply means that the president will not interfere with your functions, performance of your functions. But you cannot go rogue and then you say, I am an independent constitutional office holder. Because then there will be chaos, there will be anarchy. Right? So if he's aware, and they work within his state, the state that he leads, not that his state, but the state that he leads, then it will be onerous upon him to make sure that those who are operating within the state that he leads do whatever they ought to do as required by the law, right? They adhere to the norms that have been established and the legal principles on how these things are being done. Because one thing we must all appreciate, Dr. Nyakang'Os' case is not the first case to be tried in this country. And I've told you, within the vicinity from Karen to within Nairobi, there are no less than 4 chief magistrates' courts that will be competent to try that offense.
Okay.
And you left Nairobi, you left past Machakos, past Makueni, past Taita Taveta, past Kwale, got to Mombasa. Almost 5 counties down the line, and each of all those 5 counties, they are chief magistrates' courts. Right? That I'm telling you, the president ultimately, because this is the head of state, whatever is being done to Dr. Nyakang'Os is being done in the name of the state. So if you're telling me that the state can go rogue and is heading it, then he is also equally rogue. Because it's responsibility to make sure that whatever is being done, remember the oath of office is to defend and uphold the Constitution. So help me God. So you can't allow your state apparatus to go rogue against the Constitution. So how will you defend, how will you protect the Constitution? And then you ask God to help you. That is responsible. So either way, he's dumb, either way. If he didn't know that somebody took advantage, then it speaks to a bigger problem than we know.
Silvanus Osoro, the majority whip actually at the National Assembly, said that what is actually befalling Nyakang'Os here is similar to what happened to the former CS Treasury Henry Rotis. Do you believe that what Rotis' case is actually similar to what we are witnessing right now?
No, you see, for Rotis' case in the first place, the allegations which were made against Rotis were in relation to what he had done while he was in office as the cabinet secretary for Treasury. Those are all Kimorer shenanigans took place when he was the CS Treasury. Whatever his allegations are being made against Dr. Nyakang'Os, relates to things that happened in a purported circle in 2016 before she became the controller of budget. You understand? So for Dr. Rotis, his workplace was a scene of crime because he was the older and they had been involved in entering into those fake contracts to siphon our money.
Okay.
On Dr. Nyakang'Os, she's a statement from what she's shared with the media. You can see she was in a circle. She had been recruited to join. She even left that space. So it had nothing to do with the performance of her duties as a controller of budget. So you exercise caution by the time you make a determination to charge. And that's why I said the statement on caution and charge will have been very important.
Okay.
Because then it tells you why are you forcing her to the scene when she says, I had already left that circle, that organization. The principal officers of that circle were the following people, not me. Right.
Okay, now these are constitutional offices that have been actually established, and we as a country are looking forward to ensure that they effectively work and serve the people of this country. But then what we are witnessing right now actually raises a lot of questions on the independence of these institutions. So definitely, if you look at what is taking place, what is befalling the control of budget, and all these shenanigans taking place herein, what then would your view be on the independence of our institutions in the country? Can they work and serve the members of this country, our countrymen here, without any sort of interference from any government apparatus?
Of course, you must understand that why were these offices called independent offices and constitutional commissions? It was because of the history of interference from the executive, largely. In fact, largely, when you talk about independent office and constitutional commissions, the primary independence is from direct interference and control by the executive, because they perform a very key and important role in terms of helping to hold the state accountable. Even though they are still part within of the state, but they are meant to make sure that the executive does not go rogue. And they need to exercise their independence in a way that upholds the constitution and the rule of law. But in this particular instance, we are seeing an attempt by Nyakang'Os to claw back by trying to find, again, underhand means to undermine the independence of these officers. Previously, it would be they deny them funds or they don't facilitate their funding within time. Now you are seeing spurious charges being leveled against Dr. Nyakang'Os. And in fact, if you asked me, I would compare Dr. Nyakang'Os to what was happening to DCJ Mwilu during the Uhuru days. No, I always told you that Uhuru and Ruto are just Siamese twins. These are just the bad manners of Jubilee that continue in this country. But even the manner in which DCJ Mwilu was handled and arraigned in court, it was spurious. I mean, you cannot just jump onto a civil process and then you turn it into a criminal process and charge an office holder to the stature of a deputy chief justice in the manner they tried to handle Dr. Mwilu, DCJ Mwilu. Same thing with Dr. Nyakang'Os. You are seeing a state that tries to start undermining and chipping in to reduce the stature and the independence and the authority of offices that have stood up to uphold the provisions of our constitution.
Okay.
Yes.
What would happen if at all whichever forces maybe actually would succeed actually in controlling the office of the controller of budget, literally, as a country? Look at how the situation is with all this taking place within. If at all they successfully get there and get to her and perhaps put in somebody who the state can actually control, where will we find ourselves as a country?
No, you see where we are going to find ourselves? We are just kicking the can. I assure you, whether Dr. Nyakang'Os or any other person, even if Kenya Kwanza was to appoint Aden Duale to be the controller of budget, or Kimani Chungwa to be the controller of budget, it is the end of the road. You kicked that bucket for far too long. You've now reached a cul-de-sac.
Okay.
And that cul-de-sac is caused by what we say, debt. Kenya is staring right in the eye of a highly potential debt default.
Okay.
And those are the things that Dr. Nyakang'Os was talking about. How you manage your debt portfolio, how you manage your budget. It is what is causing this economic pain that Kenyans are talking about.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is it from Wakili Willis Otieno here on the Candid Talk. Definitely, you can weigh in on this conversation and tell us what you think about what is actually taking place with regards to what we've witnessed in the office of the Controller of Budget. Just type down there, definitely comment and tell us what you actually think. Allow me to stop this conversation at this particular moment, but we do promise that we'll bring you up to date with comprehensive analysis of everything taking place in this country. Remember, Jadel Kabiro is always here, as well as Richard Mwenje. Keep it at Nairobi Review, keep it at the Candid Talk, and of course, stay tuned to all these programs that will be bringing you. Till we have this conversation again, have yourself a lovely day. My name is Evans Okini.